Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Dr. Soul Brother coming at you with another show that I think is of great importance. My topic to you all, to all of y'all out there, is this. It's a topic, but it's also a question. Black culture. Um, who said black culture is trash? That's my question. I've been noticing a lot of stuff out here um, on social media, YouTube, etc. And it's been bothering me. I'm gonna get straight to the point. This whole thing about black culture being trash is a problem, and here's why. First of all, you got to ask the question: who says that, and why? And what do you mean when you say black culture? First of all, some of these folks out here saying we don't have a culture. So if we don't have a culture, how can black culture be trash? But beyond that, here's the other thing. Um, what I've been noticing out here as been deemed as black culture has really been ratchet culture, ratchet behavior, and all of that. For example, if you think back to 1993, which is 30 years ago, there was a movie called Menace to Society. Now, when you look at a movie like that, even though it's a fictitious story, that's beside the point. When you look at a movie like that, you're dealing with dysfunction. And if you look at the people who were in the movie, many of them came from dysfunctional backgrounds, dysfunctional households. To refer to that as quote unquote black culture is an insult. Okay. And one of the problems that I have is this: some of these people, like Brandon Tatum, I'll put names out there. Mr. Brandon Tatum, who's a uh, Negro conservative who loves white folks. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. But I'm kind of morph that into this. Um, Recently, Brandon Tatum on his channel was talking about um, this behavior of this young person. I can't remember her name in some high school who was out there, and the students were out there in the behavior. Then you also look at the behavior that you saw recently at the Essence Music Festival in New Orleans recently. Um, I think a couple weeks ago or so. And so people look at that and be like, "Oh, that's black culture, but it's trash." Well, here's the thing. Um, you can't say black culture like that. You have to qualify it because when you say black culture is trash, you're suggesting that that kind of a behavior was always the case, always the problem. First of all, ratchet behavior had ratchet behavior been the norm, and that's not to say you didn't have ratchet behavior back in the day. You've always had that, but that was not representative of black culture. And if it had been, what we know is the civil rights movement would not have come into being. And not only that, what happened during the time era of black reconstruction would not have happened, and nor would you have had what they call the black exodusters. And the black, if you anybody wants to know anything about the black exodus, there's two things. You can look at a movie, though it's a fictitious story, but you can look at a movie called Buck and the Preacher that was done by Sidney Poitier and Mr. Harry Belafonte. And also get a book by Neil Painter Irvin, I think is her name, called The Black Exodusters. That book came out, I believe, sometime in the 70s, mid to late 70s, somewhere there. The point I'm making is this: to sit up here and refer to ratchetness, ratchet behavior as black culture, and say that and it's one thing to say ratchetness is trash. It's another thing to say black culture because see, black culture is a broad term. Broad term. What's part of black culture? The different genres that black folks have created, whether it's Negro spirituals on the plantation, gospel music, what else? Ragtime music, jazz, country music. Yes, country music is ours. Blues, um, rhythm and blues, swing, bebop, etc., soul music, etc. That comes out of black culture. The dances that we produce or have produced. Um, I don't know what we're doing now, but the food that we produce, so what is known as soul food from the 1960s onward, known as soul food. But prior to that, it was down home cooking. That comes out of black culture. The way we worship, those of us who are churched, comes out of black culture. Let's understand this. The way we talk, the way we walk, etc. Um, we're soulful people. Okay. So when you say black culture, see the problem I have with the Brandon Tatum's and all them, and I'm gonna put it out there. And if Brandon Tatum is listening, I want you to hear me, bruh. Here's the problem. Wretchedness is all you've known during your growing up. So that's your point of reference. You got to go be. I think you were born what 1987, something there about. Well, guess what? You got to go way back. That alone lets me know you're not a historian. See, a historian would qualify that. Okay, that's what a true historian would do. But these folks, they won't do that. And then you've got people like, what's this guy? Um. Oh Lord, I can't. Thomas Sowell, who's in his early 90s. He talks that stuff about black culture. And for him, it makes it even more egregious because here you are in your 90s, born 1930, from someplace in North Carolina originally. And you mean to tell me somebody that age range doesn't have the sophistication nor the integrity, I dare say, to make that kind of a distinction between ratchetness, low life behavior, and black folk who carry themselves with dignity? You're doing this on purpose. You want to throw the whole thing out there. Well, guess what? That's what white folks do. White folks were known for throwing everything. In other words, you were deemed as uncivilized by virtue of your blackness in their minds. Well, that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. So when a black person, whether they're a Thomas Sowell or a Brandon Tatum type, that's exactly what you're doing. You don't really understand nor fully appreciate the distinction between ratchetness and non-ratchetness, if you will, dignified behavior. And by the way, as far as ratchetness and low life behavior, that is not unique to black folks. And when I say that, I'm not trying to uh, make excuses. I'm just saying the fact of the matter is ratchetness exists in all groups. They may not use the term ratchet, but that's pretty much what you're dealing with. So we're not unique when it comes to that. But moving forward, this thing about black culture, if you notice, back in the day, and anybody listening who is in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and possibly even 90s, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, there's no excuse for you not to know what I'm talking about. Okay? You're old enough to see that how things transition, and it didn't transition for the better. Things got worse, unfortunately. But here's the thing: you lived through those times. You lived through a time where um, uh, black folks, we put our um, good foot forward and put on our good face. Now, if you look at slavery, you were on the plantation dressed in ragtag, especially if you were a field hand. Now, if you were in the house, your attire was a lot different. So there was a social class distinction, if you will. But here's the thing: after slavery, and many of our people couldn't read or write because, as I've mentioned before, um, it was a situation where it was illegal for a enslaved person to know how to read, and it was certainly illegal for a person to try to teach a slave to read. But here's the point: you dressed up, whether you were a sharecropper or a school teacher. You dressed up. It gave you a sense of dignity and pride being dressed up. And we saw that when you watched the movie Glory with uh, the 54th Regiment, most of whom were what? Uh, Field hands. So when they put the uniforms on, it gave them um, a sense of pride and dignity. That's black culture. What also is black culture is the fact that we got married after slavery in large numbers. Yes, we got married. That's what civilized people do, frankly. Civilized people. Okay? Um, they don't just run amok like you see going on right now. But see, in order to understand what's going on right now, you have to look at which it would take me too long to go into right now. You got to look at the white counterculture of the 1960s going into the 70s. That was the influence. And that is why, truth be told, things are the way they are. What am I saying? I'm saying this. Even those black folk who are in black spaces, in other words, black folks who might have been in the inner city and might not have been living next to a white person and might not have had white people in their circles from a distance, from afar, you were seduced by the white counterculture of back in those days, the 60s going into the 70s. And so that made it okay to have out of wedlock births. That made it okay to not dress up and all that kind of stuff. It made it okay to get away from the politics of respectability. The politics of respectability, quite frankly, was used as a way to protect the black community. Now there's no fence, so to speak. It's everything is willy nilly and free for all. That's what we're dealing with. And so you have to look at what's happening. And not only that, now I'm going to get into some Marxism here. Um, you have the bourgeoisie, meaning the middle class. You have the um, proletariat, meaning the working class, and then you have the peasant class, meaning you have the peasant, and then you also have the lumpen proletariat. And lumpen culture became the thing in the movement as well as outside of the movement. And that, in many ways, has contributed to what we have. It's a slippery slope, slippery slope. So it has contributed greatly to what we see right now. So some of you all who are in your 60s, 70s, especially ones in your 70s and 80s, and possibly early 90s, you all are the ones who contributed to this madness. And if you would be honest and have an ounce of integrity, you would have to acknowledge this. You would have to acknowledge this. So there's no way on God's green earth a person walking around who's in their 70s, 80s, and possibly early 90s should allow a younger person or anybody else for that matter to say that black culture is trash. No, black culture is not trash. No, what is trash is low life gutter stuff. And contrary to what you may think, the fact of the matter is, uh, we are people who come from people who gave the world civilization. African people gave the world civilization, and what civilized people do in any society, they conduct themselves in ways that are civilized and become a beacon of light for other groups and other societies. That's how they get down. Unfortunately, what we've put out there is straight garbage, and this garbage here is apart from black culture that served as a way to keep us afloat. There is no way on God's green earth that what you see going on right now with this ratchetness, that we would have survived post slavery. No way. And we certainly would not have survived. Not only would we not have survived, there would have been no civil rights movement. Period. Period. You think that people like Rayford Logan, an historian, Charles Wesley, historian, John Hope Franklin, um, uh, a bunch of others whose name I can't think of right now, that they would have signed off on this, they would have been appalled that this thing, ratchetness, being uh, put out there and accepted. And here's the worst part, or one of the worst things. Right now, we have people who are supposed to be our representing the black intelligentsia, and they sign off on this stuff. That's one of the other things that contributes to people speaking broadly about, or speaking loosely rather, about quote unquote black culture is trash. No, what has happened, black intelligentsia, so called, you have disgraced intelligentsia. By, I say disgracing it, you have signed off and approved of this ratchet behavior, and this has become the accepted norm. This is a disgrace. And I don't want to hear this stuff about uh what they call it, the Victorian age. See, the problem with that is when you say the Victorian age, then the question becomes, what were we doing prior to the Victorian age? Because the insinuation is what? That prior to the Victorian age, this what you see going on right now, this is we were being our authentic selves. That is fundamentally false and it is dishonest. very dishonest. Okay, so I'm well aware of the Victorian age, and I will acknowledge and admit that in some instances, the Victorian age played a role in the overall society, not just in the black community, but the overall society. But guess what? Again, go back to my premise. The premise is we come from a people who gave the world civilization, the world's civilization. So if African people gave the world civilization, what does that tell you? So I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm not gonna be on here very long, but I felt it was necessary to hop on here and get to this because this is really, really bothering Dr. Soul Brother. It really is. That I'm seeing it more and more in the feed. You can see it. Black culture is trash. Black culture is trash. And most recently, Brandon Tatum, the other day, posted something like that. And every chance he gets, whether it's real or imagined, or minor or major, he can't wait to go in on black folk in some form of fashion. It's interesting to note that he won't do that when it comes to white racism and white supremacy. But that's a conversation for another day. I'm not going to waste energy and breath on him in the last few minutes I have on this broadcast. But I want people, especially young people, to know and understand black culture is not trash. Let me repeat that. Black culture is not trash. Black culture works. Black culture is you bask in it. It is something that has influenced not only this American society, it has influenced the world. Everybody tries to be like us. They have always tried to be like us, including black foreigners tried to be like black America in some form or fashion. You think that during the days of Jesse Owens and who was on the world stage because he was a world class sprinter in the 1936 Olympics and others of that ilk. You think that if black culture had been trashed the way we see right now in terms of this ratchetness, do you think that it would have been represented a beacon of light in those days? No, we would not have. Would not have. Okay. So the fact of the matter is that again, you've got to qualify that when you start talking about the culture. That kind of a ratchetness will not any group where that kind of a ratchet behavior that you see out here now that has become accepted, the accepted norm. When you see that out there, there's no way any society, any culture can survive like that once that happens. That will lead to a downfall. And for these people who morals are in the toilet, frankly, these so called academics who have failed the community, they have failed it. And they're a disgrace. They are truly a disgrace. And I'm saying that to you under the sound of my voice. You are a disgrace. For you to turn around and make that the accepted norm is horrible, horrible. And you dishonor your ancestors, your African American ancestors, who went out of their way to teach us pride and dignity, whether you were uh, um, a Howard grad or whether you were a domestic or a sharecropper. You went out of your way to do that. And in many ways, this keeping yourself in a putting yourself in a conducting yourself rather in a dignified manner had nothing to do with white folks necessarily. Okay, because the thing is this: it went beyond them. It was always this thing, and I can remember this as a child being said, "We don't do what other people do." And unfortunately, in today's environment, we've gotten away from that. And I hope and pray to God that one day soon, sooner than later, we will get some semblance of that and return to those things that kept us afloat, not this. So Dr. Soul Brother is going to sign off right now and get to probably next week. I will have another program that will kind of tie into this, but that one will probably be longer because this is another issue that has been really weighing on my heart and needs to be addressed. And I want to make it crystal clear, that these folk who are out here trying to normalize um, behavior that is not becoming, um, especially in the academic world. I'm talking to you, so-called academics. You're part of the problem, and you need to cease and desist. Dr. Sober is telling you right now to cease and desist because you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem, and what you're doing is that you are misinforming, and miseducating the young who are impressionable, who have not lived yet. They have a lot of living to do, And by God's grace, Dr. Soul Brother will do everything within his power to correct this narrative and try to guide young people, younger folk who don't know any better, who because they haven't lived long enough. So I've been around, I've seen things, I know things that these younger people don't. So it is I'm duty bound to try to set the record straight. And as Dr. Soul Brother, I have the prescription to cure some of these ills. So I will end by saying, if you like what you heard, uh, don't hesitate to comment. Please subscribe. Hit the like button. Please hit the like button. If you can hit the like button for other people, you can hit the like button for me. I would love to see your comments, whether you agree, disagree, like, dislike. I'd like to see all of that. Don't be shy. Don't hesitate to comment. So until the next time, God bless. This is Dr. Soul Brother signing out now.